Okay, we'll call this meeting of the Newark City Council Finance Committee to order. Members present are Mr. Marmee, Mrs. Hull is sitting in for Mrs. Floyd, Mr. Bubb, Mr. Cost, and myself. We do have 3 pieces of legislation on our agenda tonight, and the first piece of legislation is to consider ordinance number 1526 to provide for the issuance of $4 million of bond anticipation notes in anticipation of the issuance of bonds for the purpose of refunding outstanding bond anticipation notes previously issued for the purpose of paying the cost of replacement of water main and service lines and all necessary appurtenances, including but not limited to hydrants, valves, and fittings. Our auditor, Mr. Johnson.
You did a very nice job covering all that. Well, this is the water line portion of the downtown square renovation project. The current plan is to reissue or renew this $4 million note until 2018. At that point, the massive waterworks improvement bond issue, which was well in excess of $20 million, will be retired. So that should free up enough cash to retire this. So this is just a renewal of the debt, existing debt. The closing is in late November, so there's no need to expedite this. It can follow the normal course.
Motion. Motion, Mr. Bubb.
Second.
Second, Mr. Marmee. Any questions or comments from the committee? Questions, comments from the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor of moving this on to full council signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Our next piece of legislation is consider resolution number 1590, appropriating monies for the current expenses of municipal corporation. And section 1 is dealing with the police grant fund in the amount of $5,148.33. And Ms. Gilks is at the podium.
This legislation will carry us through 2015. The grant follows the federal fiscal year of October 1st, so we need to have a portion of it appropriated now for the activity from October through December.
This is through the rest of this calendar year then?
Yes, and I built the rest into the budget, the grant budget.
Any questions, comments for Ms. Gilks?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Bubb. Second, Mr. Cost. Anything further from the committee? Anything from the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor of moving this on to full council signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Section 2 of this legislation is dealing with the Licking County Foundation grant disc golf and walking path for $10,133.61. Ms. Gilks.
Thank you. That is the remaining funds that are needed to pay for the asphalt part of the walking path. The disc golf is complete, so go out and check it out. But we had a bill to pay, so this is the remaining.
Okay. Questions, comments from the committee?
Motion.
Motion, Mr. Bubb.
Second.
Second, Mr. Cost. Any further comments from the committee? Questions, comments from the audience? All those in favor of moving this on to full council signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Okay. Section 3. I'm sorry, Ms. Gilks. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And that next one's not mine.
Yeah. Section 3 is dealing with the probation improvement grant fund, dealing with $14,615.85. And I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with you, so if you could introduce yourself to us. And
my name is Kenda Minner. I'm the Secretary for Adult Probation.
Okay, well, welcome. Welcome tonight.
Thank you. The $14,000 is what we owe back to the state from a grant for fiscal year 2014-2015. So we have to pay that back. It's money we didn't use.
Motion.
Motion, Mr. Marmee.
Second.
Second, Mr. Bubb. Any questions or comments from the committee? Questions, comments from the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor of moving this on to full council, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. And then our next section is dealing with the Scram units, and it's reimbursement for $175.
We had a defendant cut off a scream unit, which they cut the strap, so they have to pay back $175, and we need to use that money to get a new strap. That's on the boat next to. Same thing.
Okay, thank you. Motion by Mr. Bub, second Mr. Cost. Any questions, comments from the committee? Questions, comments from the audience? All those in favor of moving this on to full council, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. And as
Offer motion.
motion by Mr. Bub for section 5,
Second.
and second by Mr. Marmee. This is the same situation, correct?
Correct.
And then, any questions, comments from the committee? Questions, comments from the audience? All those in favor of moving this on to full council, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much for your comments.
Thank you.
Our last piece of legislation is consider resolution number 1592, appropriating monies for the current expenses of the municipal corporation. And this is a request for an appropriation from the general fund for the amount of $1,221.20. And I see our chief is heading to the podium. Fire chief.
This is a reimbursement from the state on a training exercise we called Guardian Shield that we conducted with state agencies and the federal government for a terrorism response exercise. They paid the overtime for our firefighters to be there. We're just recuperating the cost.
Thank you, chief.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Bub. Second, Mr. Cost. Any questions or comments for the chief? Questions or comments from the audience? I just want to say before the committee ends, congratulations on the swearing-in ceremony earlier today. I thought that was a very nice event. And
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gilks, for working on that SAFER grant. That was, be able to hire those new employees, those new firefighters. So that was fabulous. So
Thank you.
Thank you both for all
It is a wonderful day.
Yes,
Thank
it
you.
was. Yes, it was. All those in favor of moving this on to full council, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. And that concludes the business of the Finance Committee. Up next is service.
I want to bring the Service Committee to order. Members present, myself, Mr. Blake, Mr. Rath, Mr. Willetta, Mr. Bubb, and Mrs. Falls, an innocent bystander. Okay. First one is resolution number 15-91, authorizing and directing the Director of Public Service to accept bids and sell certain surplus personal property now owned by the City of Newark, Ohio, and declaring that said property is no longer needed for any municipal purpose and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, we're going to schedule another auction out at the Service Complex. Auction's scheduled for November 14th. We currently have 105 cars ready to go for sales, bicycles, office furniture, and other items from city departments. The reason the emergency's on there is because of advertising and notice we have to give to the public. And we're able to get this sale in this year, which we are all very happy about.
Motion. Second.
Motion by Mr. Burke, second by Willetta. Any questions from any members of the committee? Any questions from members of the audience? All those in favor of moving this on to full council signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion goes through 5-0.
And if any of you are bored on November 14th, please come out and join us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. The second piece is consider ordinance 15-30, an ordinance authorizing and directing the Newark City Safety Director to certify to the Macon County Auditor the sum of $42,802.74 incurred by the Newark City Property Maintenance Division with respect to property maintenance violations to be placed as a lien upon certain parcels of real property situated in the city of Newark, Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, this is the same document that you folks see a couple times a year from us. It's just asking your permission to lien outstanding fees and fines to property maintenance.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Rath.
Second.
Any questions from the committee? Any questions from the audience? All those in favor of moving this on to full council signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Moves on to 5-0.
Thank you.
And that concludes the business of the service committee. Next is personnel.
Economic.
Next is economic.
Okay, we'll call the Economic Development Committee meeting to order. Those present are myself, Rath, Cost, Blake, Hall. Sitting in for Curtis Johnson is Ryan Buck. Up first, consider an ordinance amending Article 135, display signs and outdoor advertising of the zoning code of the City of Newark, Ohio, adopted May 5th, 2009 by ordinance 08-33A. Mr. Guthrie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I brought this proposal forward as a result of a call that I received from Ms. Lou Blind, who is a member of First Baptist Church of Newark on Granville Road. And apparently there is a provision in the current sign code that prevents churches from leaving up a temporary sign for a community breakfast. And I told Ms. Blind that I would propose a remedy, and I reached out to the law director's office and also to Mr. Rhodes, who said he did not object to a remedy. And that's what you have before you. I believe that Brian Moorhead has communicated with the law director on this, and I told the law director I wanted to keep it as narrow as possible so that we didn't sort of open the floodgates to temporary signs. So it simply applies to churches, synagogues, and mosques. And Ms. Blind is here. If the committee would allow her a minute to speak on behalf of her church.
Thank you. So we do have a sign in the front yard advertising a free community breakfast, and it's the last Saturday of every month. And I was told by Mr. Stroud that currently that I'm allowed to leave the sign up for 30 days, and then I need to take it down for 90 days. And then I can put it back up for another 30. And that sort of defeats the purpose of having a monthly breakfast. So we would like to leave it up, the sign up.
Okay, so this sign would be up year-round.
Year-round.
So it would not be a temporary sign.
Apparently, because it's the material when it's on stakes. I mean, really, churches don't really know how long they're going to do a breakfast. I mean, ours has been going on now for 5 years, but it could. We have a permanent sign as well, but it's for sermon titles and whatnot. But this breakfast sign is temporary in the front yard, and also people use it and they will stop other than the last Saturday, and if they are desperate for food, they know that we're open to that by seeing the sign, and they will come and ask us for food.
All right, does anybody else on the committee have questions?
Yeah, I do, Mr. Chairman. And this might not be for you, Lou, but what's the actual parameters? How big is this sign that can be in this temporary.
I have a picture, would you like to see it?
Well, it's not just so much you, but if we're opening up the churches and not only you, I just kind of wondering how big a sign that can be allowed. Do you have that, Brian, in front of you?
Is it 6 square feet? 6 square feet.
Okay.
This sign, I believe, is more like a banner, a banner like on a baseball field banner. Correct?
No, it's sort of like on stakes.
Is it more like a campaign sign?
Sort of. I do have a picture. Would you like to see it? No.
No. Pardon?
I think it's bigger than a campaign sign. Show them the picture.
Okay.
You want me to show them the picture?
Show them the picture.
I don't think they want to see it.
Okay, now Mr. Fraser's already.
That will clear everything up.
Sure, let's see a picture. Mr. Moorhead, I'll have some questions for you if you want to come up to the podium.
Are you done with it?
Thank you.
Okay.
Does anybody else have any questions for her before we, with the cost?
So what have you done in the past? Have you
The sign has been in the front yard for 5 years.
straight?
Well, if it fell apart, then we would get a new one. But it's basically the same sign, same size, says the same thing. But I mean, the background color could change, and the lettering color might change.
So for 5 years, no one's had a problem with us?
No, and we had to send letters to all of our neighbors, and they too had no problem.
When did that happen?
February.
Okay. And who did you provide that letter to?
Mr. Stroud.
Okay.
Along with a site map.
Okay.
I think $50.
You got a question, sir? Yes. You can come up, name and address, please.
Rusty White, 1409 Residence Drive, Newark. I just have a question. Can the sign just be reworded, resized, relocated, and not have to go through all of this?
I'm sorry.
Can it be reworded, resized, moved to a different location, and not have to go through this request?
Hold on a second.
Oh.
That's a big question, just not one for her to answer.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Moorhead, if you come up. So let me start off with, I guess, answering his question in a different way. If she has a sign out there that is allowed to be up there for 30 days, it has to be down for 90.
That's what the code says.
Then, so if she has this sign up for 30 days, then for the month of October, can she put a different sign up for the month of September or November? According to the code.
According to the code, I suppose that would skirt the regulation of the code. The way the temporary sign portion of the code is written, it was anticipated that it's a single sign. It's a temporary sign. You put it up for 30 days, you need to take it back down for 90, then you can put it up for 30 again. So if you, technically, does it say that you can't put multiple signs up? I guess it doesn't say that.
So if she had 4 different temporary signs, she could actually rotate those every month and skirt the issue.
Hey, you know what? This whole thing started because we got a zoning complaint of the sign being up too long. Mm-hmm. So Nate, our zoning inspector, talked with the church about the complaint. Ended up going to the Board of Zoning Appeals to ask for a variance for that. And that's what her comment about the letters going out to all the neighbors, because that's part of the BZA process.
You're on the Board of Zoning Appeals, correct?
I am not on the Board of Zoning Appeals, no. So they went to the board. The board granted them a temporary 6-month variance, and it was scheduled to go back to the board, and the got involved here and thought we needed a change in the code. So that's why we're here.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Mr. Bub.
Brian, if I could ask you a quick question. With this change, if we were to approve this, there's no, and I'm just reading through this here, but in theory, the church or another church could put 20, 30 of these signs up, correct?
They could put, they could put as many or temporary signs up as long as they wanted, I would say.
Thank you.
I guess the question that I have on this, on the wording, and were you involved in the wording?
Director Sasson just brought it down and said, "What do you think of this?" And I said, "It's pretty narrow, so I don't think it's a big deal."
Well, it is narrow, I think, with the exception of one word. And it says, "The provisions of this section shall not apply to any church, temple, mosque, or other place of religious worship and study." Is that another place of religious worship, of religious study, or is that a place of study? To me, the way I read it is, it could be read as a place of study, which could be just about anything. What are you studying? Are you studying religion? Are you studying math? Are you studying the ancient art of Zen Tao, whatever that is? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I guess if you've got an issue with the wording, that's probably something to take up with Director Sasson then.
Yeah, that would be a question that I would bring up, just because I think that it is narrow with the exception of that word. I think that could be open to interpretation. But then the law director may have a different opinion, and I don't see him around.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Bob.
Lou, I appreciate your efforts and what your church does, and I think this time I'll be supportive of it, but I guess kind of thinking out loud here, I almost wouldn't mind seeing maybe a number on how many temporary signs that could be put out. If we could put that in the legislation, I don't think that might not be a bad idea. I might offer that amendment later, but with that being said, I would move to pass this on to full council.
Second.
Motion by Bob. Seconded by Jeremy?
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Marmy?
Thank you. I guess
You can come up to the microphone, please, like everybody else. Sorry.
I understand the purpose and the intent of the sign and what you're trying to do, but really what we're being asked to do is change a temporary sign ordinance to allow a permanent sign. If we just go through the process to create a permanent sign, which is what you have a permanent sign, and it's permanent until you're no longer going to do business with the free meals. The same as any business's sign is permanent until they're out of business. So is any sign at all on this earth a permanent forever and ever and ever? No. But it's permanent by meaning it's more than 30 days. So I hate for us to change the definition and like, all the things that are being said about, well then, what if they have 10 of these temporary signs in front of a church, if a church decides to do that, or if any other house of worship decides to do that? Is that the intent of what we're trying to do? Or are we trying to make an exception for somebody who is doing the right thing, but yet they truly have a permanent sign? What will it take to create that permanent sign? I know financially you also don't want to spend the money on a permanent sign. So is it more beneficial for this community to try to come up with a way to help support this church to purchase a permanent sign? Or is it better for our community to actually change our definition to allow temporary signs because somebody's doing something good, which we all support? I think we all do that. But is there another alternative that we can get these folks a permanent sign? And, why can't this sign that she even has meet the definition of permanent sign if she goes through the process of getting the permit and all of that? That's my question. Is that possible? Well, I mean, there's no real true definition. You don't have to have like concrete and block in order to have a permanent sign, do you?
Depending on the size of the sign, yeah.
Right, exactly.
In this case, probably not.
She could probably get through, and as long as she fills out the proper permits and paperwork and everything, this could be construed as a permanent sign. As long as she uses the setbacks and all the other things that are required.
The issue is that the code allows one sign.
And they already have one.
They've got the sign right behind it.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay. Then that's a different story, but that's why I was asking. So, again then, can we ask for a variance? The exception be, can we allow two permanent signs? I don't know. We're being asked to change something that could open up a little bit of a can of worms. Now, we're in support of what you're trying to do here. Don't get me wrong. It's just trying not to open up the floodgates like Mr. Guthrie said. It's hard to limit any law. It really is with interpretation. So that's where I'm kind of coming from, which I think you're hearing some of that from other individuals making sure of that. Okay? So some things to think about.
Mr. Koss, you had a question of who?
Well, I don't know if it's so much a question as maybe just a comment. That a lot of the churches put up signs the week that they're having the breakfast on Saturday or the lunch or the dinner or whatever, and they have it up for that week. I want to make sure I understand, is the difference is that you're trying to promote more year-round because you have essentially an unspoken food pantry as well?
Let's not advertise that part.
Well, but I guess if you want to leave it up year-round, that's...
I do. And here's the thing, too. The clients that we're trying to reach don't get the advocate, and the only way they're going to know about this is if someone's driving by and someone sees the sign, and then they know of someone who's hungry, and then it's by word of mouth. So if I just put it up, our thinking is if we just leave it up for a few days or a week before, we may be missing people who need the service. But I'm not even sure that the week would work with it, Mr. Moore. I mean, isn't it? It's like I don't care. I don't know that he said that whether it's a week or whether it's 30 days, it has to be up and then it has to be down for 90.
Yeah, I mean that's the way their code.
Whether I put it up for 1 week or 30 days, it's still not right.
Well, the way I see it right now, you do have two options that would be legal. One would be to have 4 different signs, leaving each up for 30 days at a time. That's a way to skirt around it.
But
a little bit more expensive for you.
But I'm thinking about February. I'm not sure I could get the sign in and out.
You can.
Okay.
You can. Even if you put the wires in coffee cans filled with concrete and stand it up that way, it might blow over a little bit, so you got to go out and pick it up.
Okay.
It's possible. The other option is you have a permanent sign out there with a marquee with 4 lines,
yes,
however many characters. You can always dedicate one of that bottom line to free breakfast Saturdays from 10 to 2 or whatever your sign says. I can't read it.
Yeah, it's the last Saturday of every month, and so it would. We thought of that, and it would. The way that the size of the letters, it would. We wouldn't get anything else on the sign.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Blake.
I'm just curious, you've done this for a number of years.
Yes.
What was the motivation behind the complaints earlier this year?
I respectfully disagree with Mr. Moorhead, because when I went to the meeting, they said there was not a complaint, that Mr. Stroud happened to be driving by. The bigger sign in the picture was put up in We replaced it, and that was in December. And so when Mr. Stroud was driving by, I did not get a new permit for that bigger sign because it's the same size, color, shape of the old sign, and I was unaware that I needed to pay $202 to switch out my sign. So he got us a violation because I didn't do that, and while he was on the property looking at the new sign, he saw the other sign, and that's how I became in violation. But there was not a complaint.
So it wasn't a complaint from a neighbor, it was
No.
from the inspector?
Right. And then at the first appeal meeting, someone asked if the neighbors had complained, and he responded no.
Okay. Mr. Guthrie, you had a question earlier, or a statement?
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, obviously I support this, but I just something that's been running through my mind here now that we're in sort of the political fall season, that we pretty much exempt real estate signs and political signs, and all I'm trying to do here is put these folks on equal footing.
Mr. Frazier?
I'm sure that there's better language.
Mr. Frazier, name.
Mark Frazier, 20 West North Street, Newark, Ohio. I'm sure that there's a better way to write this that doesn't leave it so open, and maybe remove the word study or offer an exemption or find a solution for a permanent sign, but I think that can be taken care of in an amendment, and maybe it's still wise to pass this on to full council and then use the amendment process to clean up the language by the second reading. So that's what my suggestion is.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions, comments? Mr. White?
Rusty White, 1409 Residence Drive, Newark. I'm just asking for a clarification from Mr. Bubb. When you say multiple signs, are you talking about multiple signs at one time, or are you talking about multiple signs through the year?
Can I answer?
Yes, go ahead. Answer, please.
I guess my thought is, Mr. White, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, there's multiple signs on a property, so if, we allow a temporary sign, maybe just putting in one or two instead of 20, 25, at one time.
One time, okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? I'll say, me personally, I'll support this going on to full council, but I think it warrants a full council vote, but I am very hesitant as to whether I'm to support this or not. And again, it has nothing to do with you, it has nothing to do with your church, it has nothing to do with the service that you're offering, and thank you for doing that. And it's a very valuable service, and we appreciate you doing that. So it has nothing to do with that in any way, shape, or form. My reservations are, I guess, along the same lines as Mr. Bubbs, and that's just cluttering up our city. I'm not saying that you're going to clutter up your city, but I'm saying that if another temple or mosque or church decides, hey, they're allowed to do that, we're allowed to do that now too, we're going to have a bake sale, we're going to have a cookie sale, and we're going to do this, and we're going to have this rally, and we're going to do that, we're going to do that, we're going to do that all this weekend. And guess what? It went over so well, we're going to do it every weekend, and we get signs everywhere. So I'm concerned and worried about that ramification happening. And then I'm also very concerned about the interpretation of the wording in the place of study, because that could be, somebody could call themselves a place of study if they run a tutoring service out of their house. And it's a place of study, whether it has anything to do with religion or not, or it could be studying martial arts out of their house or out of a business or anything like that.
Didn't his legislation
Up
say?
to the podium, please, so we can have it on recording.
But doesn't it say that it has to be zoned in that CSI, something that starts with a C? CSI? And then, because not everything's zoned CSI.
That's true. You're right, and I guess the house example is far-fetched, but other businesses in that area. So, Mr. Guthrie.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to say I really would have no problem with an amendment along the lines of what Mr. Bubb mentioned. Might be a good idea to have the law director draft it. The law director drafted the language that's in front of you, so I can't speak to the reference to the word study.
And to be honest with you, if I hear an interpretation from him that says, no, this is absolutely a religious study, not any study, I'm okay with that. I just know when I read it, that was the first thing that popped in my head. What is it that we're studying? Is that limited to religion or not? If it is limited to religion, I'm okay with the word study. If it can be interpreted as not, then I would just take that word out. That's all. So, any other questions from the committee members or comments? Any other questions, comments from the audience? All right, seeing those, all those in favor of passing this on to full council signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So this will move on to full council with a 5-0 vote. Excuse me. Seeing no other items for the Economic Development Committee meeting, this committee meeting will be adjourned. Up next will be Personnel Committee.
Okay, it is 6:10 p.m. We'll call this Personnel Committee meeting to order. I'm Ryan Bubb filling in tonight as Carol Floyd is on vacation. Members present, Doug Marmee, Mark Guthrie, Bill Koss for Carol Floyd, along with Alex Roletta. The first item this evening, we will consider Ordinance 15-28, setting compensation with respect to certain appointed officials of the City of Newark, Ohio, and repealing all ordinances and resolutions in conflict herewith. Mr. Buskirk, are you speaking to this? I'm sorry. You're not. Are you going to speak to this?
No, I haven't seen it.
Okay. Okay, does anybody here wants to address that? Mike, do you want to? I know. Yeah, I mean, it's...
Right, you can see the video.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
The other thing, I see some appointed positions that are not in here. Do we not have to do them all? The ones that fall underneath the auditor because his election is now?
I'm not certain of that, Doug. Maybe Mr. Buskirk can address that.
Or Jerry Lake. Or Jerry Lake.
Table, that's fine. No one's here to speak on the table.
Sounds like any board should have one speak as their representative. Always organized, never speak as the representative. On the way.
Mike, now that you're back, Mr. Marmee, would you like to repeat your question? I believe this might be directed to Mr. Buskirk first.
Yeah, there's only 4 appointed officials on here, and there are other appointed officials that should fall into that same schedule, such as anybody who falls under the auditor's office that's appointed. And does the law director have any appointed?
He's got appointed people too.
Okay.
You know, Doug, this is not something that I prepared. They wanted to get this through before the elections in case they had any deadlines for people that are seeking office. I think the intent was to show the intent of No raises for the administration, no raises for city council. We can bring it back when it's a little bit further if you would like, but we just want to get the intent out there.
Yeah, the second one looks like there's, all the positions are on there, the
Okay.
elected.
But you're talking about
appointed, I think that we have to also include all the appointed positions, not just the cabinet.
Yeah, no problem.
And
Yeah, if you want to bring it back in 2 weeks, that's fine with me. I don't think we have a deadline before the election. I think it's before they're sworn in.
yes.
Mr. Guthrie?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, before we have a motion to table, I think there's another question that I think needs to be answered, and since the law director is not here, he can deal with this maybe in 2 weeks. I'm sure that everybody here recalls that there was a charter amendment which
Pulled the HR director out?
Yeah,
there was.
that section 9 or paragraph 9, I'm not sure the exact section, but it said all department heads see section 9.01 of this charter, with the exception of the Director of Human Resources, who shall be a classified
employee,
should be in the classified service,
Yep.
and who shall be appointed through a competitive selection process to the extent practicable. Now, I don't know how you deal with this. I think this charter amendment took effect in January of 13, I believe. Number one, it seems to me, based on this language, that the HR director doesn't belong in here because these are not classified employees. And secondly, that
if you follow that line,
we've got a charter that says that the position has to be filled through competitive selection process. So at some point, maybe when the new mayor takes office,
Would you read that the HR director should have gotten a 1.5% raise this year too?
What's that?
Do you think the HR director should have gotten a 1.5%?
Let's put it this way: he doesn't belong in this category.
Right. I'm just asking you for what your thoughts are, because I think it's a great question.
Probably, David, probably should be dealt with in a separate piece of legislation that deals with classified employees.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
I'm just bringing that up.
Yeah, it's a good discussion.
So that the law director can take a look at this over the next couple of weeks, because it is obviously, I think we need to fix something because in my opinion, we're not in compliance with the charter.
I tend to agree with you.
Yeah, if it's the wish of the committee to have a few of these items clarified, cleaned up before we go any further, I guess I don't have an issue with that. Does anyone else from the committee want to speak to that? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move we table ordinance 15-28 for 2 weeks that you wanted for specified period.
Okay. There's a motion on the table to table for 2 weeks by Mr. Guthrie. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Marmee. Does anyone have any further questions or comments regarding this matter?
No, Mark, I heard you on the HR director, and Doug, I heard you on the other appointed officials. We'll make sure that that's a complete piece of legislation when we bring that forward.
Okay. No further questions or comments? All those in favor of tabling this signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the table passes 5-0.
Thank you.
The next item is ordinance 15-29, an ordinance setting compensation with respect to certain elected officials of the city of Newark, Ohio, and repealing all ordinances and resolutions in conflict herewith. This is addressing the elected positions of the mayor, director of law, auditor, president of council, and the 3 council at large seats. I think as the display shows, it looks like a 0% raise across the table through 2019. Did anyone want to speak to this?
Well, again, the intent was just to show 0 pay raises. going into 2016, 17, 18, 19. The only thing I'll say publicly is I have always said, as a council member, I believe our auditor is underpaid. That's one of the things that I've always kind of felt, and it happened years ago when Lenny Feitner was here, and he said, thanks, I don't need a raise, and that's how it happened. Just food for point.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Guthrie, go ahead.
David, great minds think alike.
Thank you, Mark.
I actually, and I think this should be tabled because of those other issues, but I was going to actually propose a 1.5% increase each year for 4 years for the auditor, because I feel like the auditor ought to be brought up to the cabinet members' pay at minimum. He ought to be making what the cabinet members are making. So, that can be dealt with. If this is tabled, we can talk about that. I mean, I don't want to open the floodgates to raises, but the auditor has consistently been not where he should be.
Yeah, and I've held that similar belief, Mark.
Does anyone else from the committee have any questions, comments? Anyone from the audience? Okay, I would entertain a motion to, or you wanted a motion to table?
Yeah.
Okay.
Move to table this item for ordinance 15-29 for 2 weeks.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Guthrie. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, there's a second by Alex Roletta. Any further questions or comments regarding this? All those in favor of tabling ordinance 15-29 signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Tabling passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Just one last question for Doug and Mark. We're all under the same thought. This just needs to be done by the end of the year. Is that right?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, that was kind of my thought too. I didn't think it had to be done before the election. There was some thought it might have to be, but I never had that clarified with the law director's office. But I was always under the belief before they got sworn in.
Yeah, and in reality, in the past, we've always tried to do this before the petitions are to be filed and completed, so then it's clear as to what compensation package is going to be included in any election.
Yeah.
Not that we've done it every year. It's one of those things that sometimes slips through the cracks, but we should try to get it done before any petitions are even filed for a primary.
Yep.
Is when it should be done.
Very good. Thank you.
That will stand adjourned. Thank you.